Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon. So this is a little video tutorial to accompany the booklet that I put online for you on hand-drawn plans, elevations, sections, etc. So I'm just going to whiz through it and point out a few things on the way. So here we go. So hand-drawn in this context can mean completely freehand, or also often we use the term to apply to mechanical drawings. That's drawings that use this kind of thing, set square, T-square, on a drawing board, and can also mean, you can also use obviously CAD packages, which you could then trace over as another way of producing a reasonably accurate but hand-drawn type architectural drawing. Okay, so starting with plans, this is an example of a residential floor plan. What stands out obviously are the little blocks of colour to highlight furniture for the sofa and easy chairs, and other seating, and just little bits of differential on floor materials in the bathroom area, and obviously the sort of perimeter of changes in floor material perhaps. And then what's also nice is the use of the legend down the side there to indicate the different spaces rather than plastering the text directly onto the plan. Using a legend means that the text is kept separate and kind of allows you to not cover the drawing with information that might obscure things. Also important to notice is that the structural walls are sort of blocked in the heavy grey, so you can easily see what's structural, or more easily see, and then where there's window openings and things like that, it's a lighter line weight, and same too for the door openings, door swings, and things like that. And stairs are indicated direction of travel with an arrow and things like that. This one's resolution was obviously a little bit off, so it's a little bit blurry, but this is more of an outdoor typical small garden type landscaping plan. So what's nice here is obviously you can see what's clearly planting and what's clearly hard landscaping. So we've got the shrubs, bushes, etc. indicated and then highlighted basically with a splash of colour, and then you've got paviours and paving stones, garden furniture and that kind of thing, which again is differentiated from more solid elements of structure, and then the nice touch of colour again to bring out the vegetation, the planting, and nicely annotated with the text and pointers arranged around the drawing. And if we go on to the next one, so here's an example. Really this is a CAD plan, but it shows how you can take a fairly sort of dry mechanical looking drawing and turn it into a much more interesting view with a bit of atmosphere and a bit of colour that indicates materiality, flooring material, and just gives a much stronger presentation. And similar on this one, nice little bit of colour pencil just to bring some colour into it, and again we've got the solid block outline for the walls, but then we've got hard lighter landscaping and materials used for the outside here. We've got on the next one, we've got a floor plan which is a larger residential scheme by the looks of it, but and I'd say it's American just by looking at the trees. You've got these sort of circular trees that from a stencil template with these radiating lines. This is one way of rendering trees that's used a lot in American landscape architectural graphics in particular. Nice use of colour again, just obviously you can indicate the water elements, the pool, etc. What's also interesting is the way they use shadow to, just bring out the cars and the trees and things like this. Gives it an element of three-dimensionality, and the pool also you'll see has a shadow line there around one edge. So just lifts the drawing, makes it a little bit more interesting and more three-dimensional than a flat plan. This next one is a mixture of different elements rather than just plans, but let's just zoom in on a bit, see what we've got. So you can see that it includes includes perspective drawing and other elements, axonometric there of a planter and little photo clippings of furniture and stuff. So it's really a presentation board, but you can clearly see the plan components. So again, hard black structure to indicate the structural elements, the walls, etc., and then lighter elements for the furniture, lighter line weight I should say, for the furniture and so on. And just little blocks of colour, little splashes of marker to again just give it a little bit more interest and excitement. And the text, obviously, this use of yellow to again, create much more dynamic, interesting overall presentation. The next one is a bit more. This is an example, probably, I would say, of a CAD plan that's then been traced over, as I was talking about earlier. So hand drawn from a CAD plan. So you still get the accuracy of the plan, but you get the less mechanical line. So it's got a slightly wavy quality to it. Again, use of colour to indicate the furniture. A little bit of texture indicated on things like the deck, and then the change of floor material in the bath and entry areas and things like that. And the use of colour just again really lifts it. So the next one, this is really nice, this hatched ink drawing, and you can see how the way that he uses, or she uses different types of hatching to different tonal values, so you get effectively shadow depth and that kind of thing. And also you can see this area over here would be trees and planting, etc. There's also shadow associated with that. So nice drawing. Okay, we're on to sections. This is again a similar example in a way of an ink drawing, or possibly pencil, but again using hatching, shading to really bring out the different volumes of the interior space, and obviously the tree element, which is cut through, even through one of the main branches there, which that's a really nice drawing. So then we've got another section here. Obviously this is a reversal. We've got white on black, which is a nice way to do things sometimes. Again, it's possibly a tracing from a CAD drawing, slightly wavy quality to the line. But again, look at the different line weight through the sort of areas of the roof and where it cuts through the main structural element of the floor, etc. And the different type of hatching to indicate, the ground, the concrete. I mean, these are all architectural conventional ways of graphically indicating, terrain and concrete and insulation, for example, there in the wall structure, in the roof and so on. And then the use of figures again to just give scale. Right, the next one, I mean, there's very different but not dissimilar building type, but obviously no figures, but nice use of watercolour to just give that solid block of ground that the building sits on, and then a little bit of colour splashed over the planting in the landscaping, and then a little bit of tone into the interior. So it really just transforms that from being what could perhaps be, without it, a sort of fairly faint, less punchy kind of drawing. So the next one, again, nice use of pencil. This time they've left the structure as white, but it still clearly reads as structural, these non-shaded elements. So that's kind of, reversal of the usual way of doing things. So wherever it cuts through anything solid, wall, concrete, floor, even the stairs, you can see that they're all rendered just as pure white, which is the colour of the paper, obviously. But then, they've gone to town on the pencil shading and the tonal hatching and tonal treatment of the interior, and then again some furniture, some cars for scale. So that's nice. Okay, the next one, similar in some respects. Again, heavy block section through the landscape as well, so you get the real indication of what strong varying up and down sort of terrain we're sitting this building onto. We've got nice use of solid grey for the structural elements of the floor and the windows, and the floor and the wall elements, and then the windows are treatment. Got a little bit of hatching on there, and yeah, so that's a really nice pencil drawing. One more. Again, this one's more than likely a CAD drawing actually, but then obviously taken into Photoshop to add the presentational colour treatment. And what's nice is, it's just blocks essentially of tone, the grey, the beige, but then the use of the figures and the splashes of colour with even the paintings that you can see in the left hand side there, and the plants and the figures all give it scale. And then the nice touch with the trees in the background, which you see have really toned down, really desaturated, so that they don't dominate. The other nice touch in this drawing is the use of the treatment to show the lighting, the splashes of wall lighters, essentially uplighters and downlighters, shining a tonal gradient onto the walls. One more. This is a really lovely pencil plan and section through a garden site, so very relevant to your project. Really nice treatment of showing the planting, and then the hard landscaping elements, the pavers, the stone patio, etc., all indicated really just through treatment of line weight and texturing. And then it clearly follows the view that we can see in the section, with the fence and the pagoda and all of those elements that go into making that design. Seating area broken up into planting, seating area. Can't quite read the rest of it, but anyway, you get the idea. One more. This one's interesting because, this is pushing things a lot further, obviously, but a section is a really nice drawing to take into a perspective mode. What they've done here, obviously, is started with the section and then skewed it slightly to a sort of perspective angle, and then using the shot of the model to drop in Photoshop, and then obviously it's been toned down in terms of transparency and saturation so that it fades off into the background, and the section is the dominant part of the drawing. But you can see how that, and you get a sense of both section and the building sitting in its context. So a bit more advanced, but a very interesting technique you might want to explore in future. One more, I think. Again, hatching, paint, pencil tone, mainly use of pencil tone to indicate where light is coming in through these clear story windows up here, for example, and through this roof lighting. So that's really nice tonal indications, and the figures obviously, and again the way that the building sits into the ground. The ground is clearly differentiated in the way it's hatched. one more. This is another landscaping type project, a little outdoor park with a little pagoda, a little bridge across presumably a stream of some kind. So just again, the use of figures, the use of nice colour pencil really lifts what's essentially perhaps a more or a less interesting drawing. Just the use of a few figures to give it scale, and the colour to bring the trees to life. The use of shadow under the pagoda, so we get the sense that you are sitting in shade and things like that. Another section. Yeah, this is a good before and after example. So you start, again, this is a CAD drawing, but you can see just taking it into Photoshop, adding a little bit of basically marker effect to give the rendering of the interior, and then the backdrop of the trees. That would not take long to do something like that in Photoshop. And then the way that it's treated, obviously the trees are toned down, so again it doesn't dominate. Again, where light is falling into through the windows here on the right, you can see, for example, we just have that slanting slight increase in the lightness of the wall. So you get, and then the shadow also underneath on the ground floor area. So you get a real sense of volume and light coming into that space. One more section that's again a section type perspective. Not as sophisticated perhaps as the earlier example. It's not using a Photoshop model dropped in, etc. But a nice drawing to do this kind of drawing. Quite easy to do in some respects, because you're starting with a section and then you just stick in the vanishing point. Everything goes to the one vanishing point, which you can even more or less see, I think, there on the horizon line. But nice use of, again, tonal variation to indicate volume and spaces. No figures in this one. I think one figure might have really helped, but anyway, can't have everything all the time. Another one very similar to the previous example. In fact, I've shown you that one. Sorry, that's in twice for some reason. This one, I mean, this is much more hand-drawn, sketchy, possibly a design concept drawing rather than a finished design, but really lovely sketch section perspective from a bird's eye point of view. So quite an unusual, perhaps, viewpoint. But again, you can see the way that he's indicated section through hatching, that is sitting on a topography, and the lovely sort of very dynamic line that you can see the way it crosses over at the ends. He's not worried about making it all neat and tidy, if you like, but it gives it real personality and dynamism. Okay, so this one's nice because it just shows a real awareness, if you like, of changes in things that are happening within a site in terms of transitions from pavement to planting border to perhaps stone wall to low level planting to full size trees with giraffes eating them leaves and all sorts. So easily identifiable changes of height, but all sitting on a nice, easily rendered ground line with just that line, and then the tonal variation of the grey to give a nice solid base for the whole thing. And then again, just splash of colour on the trees, really with a few variations in the green used on that. It's just a literally probably 30-second thing to do, but would lift that drawing obviously. So another section. This one's more of a pencil drawing again, but again, nice use of hatch to show shade and volume on this chimney sort of feature here in particular. The way that again it's sitting into a ground terrain. Use of figures, the scale, use of trees in the background to give it context and sit it within a more realistic site environment. This one doesn't have any context, but I've included it anyway because it is such a nice drawing. Just the way that they've used line weight and shadow to really show depth on a elevation drawing. Which is the problem with elevations, is by and large that they tend to be a little bit two-dimensional and flat by nature. So to transform it, you have to have a really strong awareness of shadow and line weight and line hierarchy, and that's a really lovely drawing. One more similar technique, but a completely different kind of drawing in some ways. So the use of line weight, you can see the thicker black line indicates all the way around, and then much lighter line weight on the windows, the shuttering, and the people, and then the trees obviously give it colour and scale and set it again within a proper site environment with presumably palm trees and planting. And then the shadow, underneath the opening here, you've got this porch that runs the full length of the elevation. You've got a real nice indication of shadow there that brings that out and makes it a three-dimensional drawing. And then also on the roof elements, the windows, you can just see a hint of shadow on the side of these large roof elements. Okay, what's the next one? And that one again, similar, slightly simpler, but similar technique. Okay, let's move on. This one too, very, very similar. Bit more detail in the brickwork. That's texture indicates on the left-hand side for the chimneys. But again, the way that you've got shadow and hatching indicated on the porch there. Yeah, nice drawing. This one too. What's nice about this again, nice solid line to represent the section through the site, the site topography. Obviously, lots of changes in level, and then the way that they've rendered this stone wall elements with steps running up the side, and then the shingles on the facade here. But see how they use a nice thicker line anyway around, especially on the shingles here, so that they really stand out slightly. It's like a little jagged line. So yeah, really nice drawing. One more, interior. Obviously this time, again, it's a CAD drawing, but just deciding to render just this diagonal band of colour and adding a figure, really gives it a much stronger sense. And then you've got the landscape view rendered into the background, presumably the view you'd see from the window sitting at one of these tables here. One more. This one's interesting because it's basically a perspective elevation, which isn't a common drawing, but nice for you to look at. So yeah, what's interesting, you've got the person here rendered down at the bottom. We're coming out into a hard landscape with steps and stuff, and the window openings here that have a real sense of receding into three-dimensional space. The use of both perspective and changes of tone, and nice little use of the colour. And look at the shadow lines on the area around the entrance there. Here's a good before and after again. So typical CAD type drawing, a bit flat, a bit dull, a bit mechanical, taken into Photoshop. Just subtle but changes in tone, in particular attention to giving a shadow line underneath the eaves, so that we pick up on these structural elements along the eaves of the roof, and then reflected down here in the shadow. And then obviously a hint of colour. And then this one's a pencil drawing, but again you can see using the strong blocks of shadow to really break that drawing up into its different massed elements, massing elements. So, and again, like stronger lines underneath the eaves, down the line of the chimney. So instead of looking at a flat two-dimensional drawing, it's becoming really three-dimensional. This one's similar, again, much stronger blocks of black, more or less, to indicate the shadow, but nice touch with the wispy smoke and the tree, so nice. Okay, some perspectives just to finish off. We've got these are kind of sketchy, but again, you're not worried about nice precise mechanical lines. They have a personality, they have a little bit of a hint of wobbliness, waviness, call it what you like, but little touches of shading, little hints of colour, and of course the scale figures all really create a really nice finished perspective drawing. Same for this one, more or less the same technique, same artist actually, but even notice the shadows on the figures here, and obviously slightly stronger use of fairly bold coloured pencil or pastel to render and separate the building from the background, really. Another one, more mechanical, an ink drawing, but nice use of indication of the stone wall for the texture, and a little bit of hatching shadow lines, darker on one side of the chimney than the other. So it's a real three-dimensional quality to it, rather than just relying on the perspective vanishing points. And this one's an interior, nicely rendered pencil interior. You can see that it shows the way that the light is coming through the windows. I mean, the way the windows are rendered, more or less by leaving them just as pure white, but just a hint of pencil, and then the hatching on that back wall really indicates a sort of play of light over that surface. And then obviously those are pictorial elements or pictures in frames, and the pillows, and the way the whole arrangement, the whole composition actually is really nicely treated on that drawing. You get a nice sense of what that space would be like just from a grey scale pencil perspective. These are a bit more of a mishmash. They are actually colour plans and elevations rather than perspectives, but again you get a good sense of light falling through windows, that kind of thing, light from downlighters, obviously use of colour, fireplaces, things like that. Same here, we've got actual perspective this time. No, not much really to lift it from just being a conventional perspective, but the use of figures, splashes of colour, little details in the bottles really, that purple and green bottles that pull them out, so that's really nice. Same here, collection of plan and elevation, interior elevation and finished perspective view with a little bit of quick marker for colour and so on. And then this one's kind of a bit more dynamic, but I liked it. I thought it was interesting viewpoints. For one thing, we've got the bird's eye view, the worm's eye view, and the way that this dripping watercolour thing going on. It's kind of really cool. And finally a few trees, just to give you some ideas of how to draw planting and shrubs and trees in a landscape architectural drawing. Yeah, and it can be quite simple. I mean, even without the colour, these are, you know, just real quick and simple to do. Yeah, so, and all freehand. Once you practice doing these a few times, you'll you know, be able to whiz them off in a matter of seconds, literally, and then add a splash of colour if you want to. Again, just lift it. Really finishes it off. Looks great. Okay, so hopefully that was useful for you, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye.